Basically.
Doc Williams Podcast.
Good times, good times.
Doc Williams Podcast.
Well, basically.
Doc Williams Podcast.
Good times, good times. And welcome back, everyone. This is Doc Williams with the Doc Williams Podcast, and we have the pleasure to be with who today?
My name's Neal Schaffer.
Neal, thank you so much for being here. How's everything going with you?
Oh, Doc, it's an honor to be here. Everything is going awesome. Despite whatever hits me, I stay as positive as possible. So no change today.
Good times, good times. Yeah, and so with people hearing this, we're recording this on March 26th. And a lot of you, when you're listening to this, this is going to be as you're trying to be figuring this out. A lot of you are having a small business. You're trying to figure out your next MVP, your minimal viable product, or your MVF, which is your minimal viable funnel. Perhaps you're doing all of those things right now and you're concerned what you're going to be doing. So we have Neal here talking about his background, talking about influencers. I don't want to give too much away, but this is going to be a perfect episode for you to start getting to the next level for whatever you're trying to do. So Neal, tell me a little bit about yourself, first of all.
Oh, sure. Well, I have been doing social media marketing and digital marketing, consulting and speaking, and I've written a few books. I've been doing this for like a decade. So before that, I was actually in B2B sales, technology sales. And my unique background is that I did all of that in Asia. I actually lived in Japan for 15 years. I'd help businesses, launch sales organizations in China, Japan, throughout Asia. So my first 15 years of my career, I was an entrepreneur within a company because I was allowed to be like a country manager or a regional VP of sales. So I was able to see everything. And that holistic business experience, not just dealing in business with different cultures, but also being able to see different parts of the organization, including, doing marketing and even hiring people, what have you. That gave me a really solid background that when all of this took off, I started with a blog, and I didn't intend for this to be a side hustle even. We didn't even have that word when I started my blog back in 2008. But with the economy and it was late 2008 where for the first time I lost a job because I'd always been the one on the other end changing jobs. And that's where I realized that, and it was actually the day that President Obama was elected. My boss came out from Duluth, Georgia, and I'm here in Southern California and told me the news. And I realized that, we're all passionate about what we do and we want to do the best. And I realized that regardless of that, at any point, if you're working for somebody, they can take that away from you like that, right? And I realized then that I needed to build something that no one can take away from me. Now, at that time, it wasn't a side hustle. It was really a personal brand. And I ended up writing a book from that blog that I created in 2009, which led to speaking opportunities, which led to me launching my business in January of 2010. So since then, I've done a lot. I've helped a lot of companies from startups to, a Grammy award-winning musician to Fortune 50 companies. I've spoken on, 4 continents, more than a dozen countries on this. I teach at Rutgers Business School as well as the Irish Management Institute in Ireland, teaching executives. And I also, as far as the books written, my latest book just came out last week, not the best timing, but it's called The Age of Influence, about influencer marketing, because I think right now I don't know if it is the most powerful form of marketing, but it's one that's least understood by people. And I think it's the area where people need to get up to speed on because it is extremely powerful.
That's amazing. And I totally agree with you. Having those influencers or being able to speak to an audience with that power, it's transformative. So we're going to delve into that a little bit more. Tell me about the process of writing this book. How did it get started? Why was it necessary for you to write this book and have the audience to really digest this information?
So one thing I'll tell you, a lot of people like, Neal, I want to write a book. First of all, you do not make money writing books. Okay. It is not going to generate revenue. Yes, you want to break even, but the book becomes an amazing business card, right? It's something you leave behind. It's something that if you send to someone, they're very happy that they received it from you. It's something that builds incredible credibility in the market. It's also like a podcast. It's a vehicle to get out there and sort of interview people as well. This book came about, it was really the trigger. There were 2 sort of trigger events that happened. One was, I mentioned I do a lot of speaking and teaching. And the questions I get asked are really, what is top of mind with people out there. So several years ago, it was about social media strategy, social media ROI. I wrote a book called Maximize Your Social to address that. But about 2 years ago, I remember I was teaching a class on social media marketing at USC here in LA. I was invited by the professor to be a guest lecturer. And these are all MBA students. They're all late 20s, early 30s. And after I was done speaking, and this was not about influencer marketing per se, this was my general sort of looking at the social media platforms and how businesses are strategically leveraging them. The number one question I get asked was about influencers, but it wasn't just about influencer marketing. These people that were listening to me were also like, Neal, my next door neighbor is like, getting a few $1,000s per post on Instagram. How do I get in on the action? So all these people also wanted to become influencers. And after that, I really toned into the fact that, wherever I spoke, I was getting asked about influencers. And a lot of marketers and entrepreneurs and small business owners also want to become influencers. So that was the first trigger event. The second one was, Doc, a lot of people probably reach out to you. You mentioned like Social Animal reached out to you recently. I get a lot of people reaching out to me, right? So one guy reached out to me and he goes, Neal, I just created, and I'm going to let everyone know, if you are interested in writing a book, this is what I would do. He goes, Neal, we have a new platform. It's like a Kickstarter for authors. He's like, here's the thing. You want to test market your idea. You don't have to write a book. Put your idea out there, sell copies. And if you make enough sales, you can write the book. And by the way, other publishers look at this platform and maybe they'll decide they want to bring you on as an author. So the site is called Publishizer. And I ended up doing that. And I test marketed the idea. If I wrote this book on influencer marketing, would people be interested? So I wrote the outline. It's basically, 12 chapters, 12 ideas. And for each idea, 3 bullet points. And I got several hundred orders, right? So I wrote the book. And that's really how it started. So, getting further into that process of writing a book, I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of teaching. So I had a lot of content. So based on those sort of 12, I keep it the number 12, 12 months of the year. It's easy to remember. If you can write 12 chapters, books are normally 40, 50,000 words. So 12, 4,000 word chapters. So 1,000 word per 3 bullet points. I try to think very rationally about this, right? So if you can splice and dice the content in that way, and I realized that I had all these presentations that I could splice and dice to really fit each chapter. So I ended up actually working with a ghostwriter. Now, this is another, even Pat Flynn has mentioned he's working with a ghostwriter for his latest book, but the ideas are all mine, but I'm able to basically record a Zoom recording of me going through the presentation that the writer then translates into a chapter, which then I revoice. I make sure the facts are right. I make sure it's done in my tone, but it saves me a lot of time. And it is a process I recommend everybody do. And, I saw some stat that more than 2/3 of books on the New York Times bestseller list are written by ghostwriters. So, but once again, it's your ideas, your voice. You need to find the right person. But if you can do that, you can write a book very, very quickly. And so the book, even before I was done writing the book, because of social media and personal branding, and I was talking a lot about influencer marketing, people started to see me as an expert on it. They were asking me to speak about it. I was asked to guest blog about it. I started getting business from it. And that's sort of the way it works. So in a nutshell, that's sort of the process of what I did.
I love that so much. I was just writing down notes, and as we do this, if anyone's watching the video version, of course, you have access to the audio one, but don't forget, for exclusive content, if you opted, you get the video. What we do is when we're going through this, I'm actually looking at different URLs. I'm pulling out stuff. So instead of you writing down all those things, you can see it. So as Neal was talking about all these things, I'm like, oh yeah, let me just pull up this site and everything like that. I wanted to really hone in on a few things that you were talking about. Even for this book that you were saying, I love that it was just an MVP launch right there. I mean, you
Absolutely.
validated the thing. And then again, you didn't move forward until everything else checked the boxes. And then you knew, okay, people were ready for it. I love hearing that. The audience loves that too.
You got to, test market everything.
So when you have that, I love that. I wrote down, what was it? Publishizer?
Publishizer, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm slurring my words. I have such a bad time with this. But that was excellent. And then too, on top of it, when you were talking about having a ghostwriter and them listening to you, it just brought back to, that's how I did my first book, How to Hijack Trust, How to Not to Market Like a Human Again. That's what I did. I just used a memo pad, did it, and then used Timmy to just basically re-edit it, then uploaded it to Amazon. But I also was thinking about the ghostwriter. Are you familiar with I guess what is their names now? I'm just pulling everything up. I guess it's scribe writing. It used to be Book in a Box. Do you remember
Yes,
them?
I am familiar with them.
When you were just talking about that, I was like, oh, that reminds me exactly like that style, because I think you talk to them and then they're having the ghostwriter do it with you. But that was just a side point. Oh, go ahead though.
Yeah, no, there are a number of services like that. The beautiful thing about Publishizer is if you were to do your book there, a bunch of people reach out to you, right? Not just publishers, but also companies like Book in a Box. And what you find is there's a huge ecosystem of companies that are there. If you just want help with ghostwriting, if you just want help with, editing or book cover design, when I wrote my first book, Doc, it was back in 2009. It was self-published back then, and it was done through a company called BookSurge, which was later, well, it was an Amazon subsidiary at the time that was then merged into CreateSpace, which now is part of Kindle Digital Publishing. But there wasn't anything available. It was really early in terms of self-publishing. Now, because it's been a decade, there are tons of resources out there. You could go on to like an Upwork and find a ghostwriter now, which I don't know if you could have done that 10 years ago. And there are services. Generally speaking, if you want someone to do everything for you, that's when it gets to be most expensive. So I have like a DIY heart, right? I'm sort of a cheapskate, and maybe because my parents were raised in, in the recession in New York City, it's part of my DNA. But I always like try to find what value do I have, and what value can can others provide me that will give me the most bang for the buck. And I want to invest money there to get the best I can of that service. So there's a lot of different services out there. Look around. My first book, I had like friends proofread. I had my nephew's, friend from high school, or nephew's wife's friend from high school. She went to Harvard. She ended up editing, and now she works at Oracle, right? So, this goes to speak to, Doc. And I think when we talk about influencers, I don't know how much time we have left. Maybe we have to do a part two, but
Yeah.
it turns into your network. Right? Your network is your net worth. But your network is only valuable if you leverage it, right? And if you've been digging your well before it's thirsty, and if you've been giving value to everybody, if you want to write a book, there's a lot of powerful ways that you can tap into the people around you, and you never know what skills they might have.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yes, we're going to table that because we down that rabbit hole, but this is excellent. I want to go for the audience for listening to. I want to make sure that I have it. This is the correct book.
Yes.
Yep. And so The Age of Influence, the power of influencers to elevate your brand. So you can get it right here. We're going to have a link in the notes for the episode as well to make sure that you get it. And then also for the audience, we're going to be buying the 2 copies for anyone that will be entering to win. So we'll make sure that we have that. So I love the cover, by the way. With the time left, what we're going to be talking about, we're going to use this The Age of Influence. We're going to be talking about this, and we're actually going to now go into one of the projects that we have from Brand Factoring. So as what's going on with the virus and everything, people are worried about what they're going to be doing with their business. This is actually we'll see how long it lasts, but it's 40 days. What we're doing is we create a business in an hour. We're usually live for about 2.5 hours, but in real time, we're building out a business for you. A lot of you are scared, wondering what you're going to be doing, what you need to pivot to. So if you're going to build with me, it's actually going to be buildwithdoc.com. You're going to be getting the website where it's nothing fancy. It is literally us building a business every single night with a different tool. So we had in episode 3, we had Social Animal. And this is perfect timing for Neal to talk about this. We're going to be talking about a tool called Social Animal, where it's the Swiss Army knife of content marketing and finding influencers, making sure that they help you amplify your content and all of those things. So we have an expert right here with Neal. We're just going to go and ask you about 3 questions, if that's okay, Neal, about building a business this way. Yeah.
Yeah, Doc, maybe we should talk about it, the elephant in the room. So
Okay.
About COVID-19,
Yeah.
because, we talked about this before, everybody watching this, in the back of their mind, that's what they have. And, my advice for the next few weeks. So you can read the book, and we're going to talk about leveraging influencers. Obviously, I have a client of mine, and they sell basically cosmetics. to, it's sold to Amazon and it's sold to Walmart and CVS, and they have their own online store. And they've basically pulled the plug on online advertising, right? Their warehouse is closed down right now because it is not deemed an essential business by the state of California. So, but what we are doing is investing in the infrastructure so that when this is over a month or two from now, so we're working on the website, we're working on the marketing automation, right? On better scoring, we're working on building a loyalty program. So, there are different phases you need to do in your business. Right now, vis-a-vis influencer marketing, the most powerful thing you can be doing is identifying and reaching out and using this time to build relationships. And by the way, if you want to know, if your idea is going to make it or not in the market, the great thing about influencers are a lot of them are very niche. In other words, if you want to target a certain market, there's influencers out there that already speak to that market and they know the products and services that exist. And by developing relationships with these people, you may say, hey, what is missing in the marketplace? Or, hey, if we were to create a product together, what would that look like? I think if you're able to develop relationships the right way to the point where you can sort of bounce ideas off each other, I think that's going to be extremely powerful for you. And that's something you can do right now, regardless of any of the coronavirus. Now, we'll get into the influencers. Every influencer is different, right? Some are like, I don't want to talk to you unless you give me money. Some are like, dude, I love what you're doing. How can I help? So everybody's different, right? We're not talking about like building a Facebook ad here where you have to pay money and how much money do I pay per person? These are people, right? So by being creative and by being a good person and by paying it forward, I think you can go a long way. So that's just, I don't want you to think that we're completely ignoring coronavirus, right? But you still can use these tactics, although it's going to be more top of funnel than bottom of funnel. But then once we get out of this, hopefully you'll have your product ready, you'll be full steam marketing ahead, and that's where it's going to pay dividends.
Well, Neal, you know what? I love how you just put that there because it's really relevant right now. And it allows them to, I just think everything you just said is so perfect. And because instead of being paralyzed and wondering about sales, you can still be proactive in this time. And so exactly like what you were talking about, the influencer search using Social Animal. And by the way, you all know this, but I'm not an affiliate. I'm just saying this and trying to plug. But this is just a tool we find that it can help right now. But kind of like Neal was talking about, having the influencer or finding out how you can just work together, identifying them if it's a good fit. If you already have that plan, if you already go in there with intention and start working together now, that is going to be huge. How do you approach the conversation to start working with influencers? You mentioned like some just want to talk to you when you have money, but how do you talk to them? What would be your first step about that?
Yeah. So before you talk to them, obviously that identification piece is important. So you have a tool like Social Animal. I tell my clients, because this DIY heart of mine, go out there in Twitter, do searches for keywords, go out there on Instagram, do hashtag searches, see who's talking. These tools will help accelerate it, but no tool is 100% perfect, right? So I think if you were to do those searches, you're going to find people, right? People you may not have even heard of that have lots of followers, get lots of engagement, what have you. But I also want to remind you, it doesn't take 100,000 followers to make an impact. It could be, in influencer marketing terms, we talk about micro influencers and nano influencers, and some define them as having as low as 1,000, if not 500 followers. So that's part of the dialogue in my book. I'm trying to redefine how we look at influence, but some of it is also your customers, people that you've worked with in the past, getting survey data. But anyway, once you figure out who you want to work with, I recommend building social signals, right? So if someone was to reach out to me, I'm like, okay, did they subscribe to my newsletter? Are they following me on Twitter? Did they ever, comment on any of my blog posts? So, there's very simple things you can do to, follow people, engage with their content, comment, and try to build a rapport that way. Because when you do that, you become part of, they sort of remember you, so that when you do reach out, when you want to slide into the DM or fill out the contact form, whatever it is, you've already built a little bit of a relationship rather than completely cold out of the blue, right? So yes, it requires time, because guess what? Developing relationships with people requires time, and everybody looks for the shortcut. Yes, there are tools there, working with Doc, there's a lot of shortcuts you're going to learn, but there's some things, right, that it's not a shortcut. So you got to work, you got to invest the time. So yeah, I would reach out. So once we get to that point, I'd reach out and say, hey, by the way, thanks for responding to my comments, or really love your blog post or your video on Instagram. I'm an entrepreneur. I have loads of ideas, about developing product for your industry. I don't know how you work with entrepreneurs, but I'd love to buy you, well, I don't know what you can buy them, but if you had free time because of coronavirus, I'd love just to have a 15-minute exploratory call, because I think I might be able to help you in many ways as well. And if you're up for it, let's do it. Or the other way is, that's even being really direct. The indirect way is saying, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, planning my next idea. I don't know how you collaborate with companies, but I'd love to open a conversation if you're interested. So you're not saying I'll pay you this much to do that. You're saying, hey, really love your stuff. Would really love to work with you. I don't know how you collaborate with brands or with companies or with entrepreneurs or startups, but if you had 15 minutes of your time, I have some ideas. I'd love to, have a Skype conversation or Zoom conversation, right? That's really the approach that I take. And guess what? Remember how I said that brands were pulling the plug on advertising? That means advertising with influencers as well. So influencers now are probably seeing a decrease in revenue, and therefore it is great timing to build those relationships, because they're also wanting to do the same. They need to expand. They need to mitigate their risk, and they need to expand their relationships and collaboration. So that's why, my Japanese client always says "pinchi kara chance e," and what this means is from pinch to chance, right? From potential disaster to opportunity. I love that mindset, and that's the mindset I want you to have. So, like I said, be open. There's no one formula here. Be a person, but engage beforehand. We call them sending social signals. Reach out in a very open way, and guess what? This is where my B2B sales background comes in, because not everyone's going to respond. It's a numbers game, right? Unfortunately, it's more like a sale. And when you do marketing, it's like one to many, right? Like that Facebook ad or that Instagram post, you reach hundreds or thousands of people. With influencer marketing, it's truly one-to-one. So unless you're reaching out to 100 people, you're not going to get 20 responses or 30 or 15 or whatever it is. So you need to have a pretty large pool, right? So, just because, hey, I reached out to 5 people today, I'm just going to wait. It's sort of not how it works. So, reach out to a lot of people, branch your tentacles out there, and see what comes of it, right? And it is going to cost a little bit of time, but it can be done very quickly. It can be done in 5 minutes a day. Here are the 10 profiles I'm going to target this week. 5 minutes a day, go through maybe 10 minutes, right? And then after a week, try to slip into the DM. Doesn't work, or while you wait for another week, you do 10 more. That's an easy way to do it. And if you have a lot of time now, you could accelerate that and spend 15, 20, 30 minutes and contact 20, 30. But that's really, without using any tools or hiring an agency, that's really the easy way to ease yourself into it. And hopefully after, 2 months, wow, you've contacted 80 people or 100 people or 150 people. And maybe you get 20, 30 responses. And maybe that leads to 10 or 15 really interesting conversations. And maybe from that, you get your product idea. Or you get someone that says, you know what, my best friend's an entrepreneur. They're looking to do the same thing. Why don't you JV? I don't know, right? But as we know in business, magic happens when you bounce ideas off people. So at a minimum, right, these are like experts in their industry and they're influential. They're great people to try to bounce ideas off of if you can get their time. And that's going to be the challenge. That's why you got to reach out to a lot of people, leave it open-ended, see, how you can help them and how they collaborate with people and go from there.
Neal, thank you so much. So many, just so much information right there. Very actionable to start today. Neal, where could the good people find you and find out more information and be able to follow you online as well?
Yeah, I am at, my name, Neal Schaffer. That's my brand, right? So nealschaffer.com, NealSchaffer.com. Neal Schaffer on all social media. Obviously, on Amazon, do the search for The Age of Influence. That's the book. And I also have my own podcast called Maximize Your Social Influence, where we look at how to build, leverage, and monetize influence in digital and social. So if you're interested in that, check that out as well. And Doc, we'll have to have you on there as well.
Good times. Thank you so much, Neal, and we'll be talking soon.
All right. Thanks, Doc.